The old, abandoned house sat at the end of the street, its windows boarded up and its walls covered in moss and vines. Locals avoided it at all costs, knowing that it was rumored to be haunted by the ghost of a small girl who cried every night in loneliness. One day, a group of friends dared each other to spend the night inside the house. They laughed and joked as they pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside. But as the sun began to set and the shadows grew longer, their laughter turned to unease. They made their way through the dusty, cobweb-filled rooms, their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. As they passed a closed door, they heard the faint sound of a child crying. Curiosity got the better of them, and they opened the door to find a small bedroom. In the corner, huddled in a ball, was a young girl. She looked up at them with big, tearful eyes and whispered, "Please don't leave me here alone." The group of friends were frozen in shock, unsure of what to do. They had heard the rumors of a ghostly presence, but they never expected to find an actual living person in the abandoned house. As they tried to comfort the girl, they noticed strange things happening around them. Objects began to move on their own, and the air grew colder. The girl told them her story, of how she had been left behind by her parents and had been trapped in the house ever since. Suddenly, they heard a loud, piercing scream coming from outside. They ran to the window and saw a figure standing in the yard, staring up at them with glowing eyes. The girl clung to them in terror, and they realized that they were not alone in the house. They tried to leave, but the doors and windows had all been locked from the outside. The figure outside began to pound on the door, and the friends realized that they were trapped with the haunted girl and whatever else lurked in the darkness. As the night wore on, the friends tried to find a way out, but it seemed that every door and window was sealed shut. They could hear the girl crying in the corner, her sobs growing louder and more desperate. The figure outside continued to pound on the door, its presence growing stronger and more malevolent. The friends huddled together, praying for dawn to come and release them from this nightmare. When the sun finally rose, they found that the doors and windows had all been unlocked, and they were able to escape the house. They ran down the street, their hearts pounding with fear, and never looked back. But even though they had escaped, they knew that they would never forget the haunted girl and the horrors that they had witnessed in the abandoned house. And they knew that they would never be able to shake the feeling that they were being watched, even in the safety of their own homes. Weeks passed, and the group of friends tried their best to move on from the trauma of their experience in the haunted house. However, they all still felt haunted by the memory of the small girl crying alone in that abandoned house. One night, the group of friends decided to meet up for a movie night. They sat in the dimly lit living room, watching a horror movie and trying to forget about the haunted house. As the movie ended, they all began to make their way home, promising to keep in touch. As one of the friends walked home alone, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed. She quickened her pace, her heart pounding with fear. Suddenly, she heard a faint sound, like the cries of a child. She followed the sound, her heart racing with terror, and soon found herself standing in front of the abandoned house. The same room where they had found the haunted girl was now illuminated with a faint, ghostly light. As she approached the house, she saw the ghostly figure of the small girl standing in the window, beckoning her closer. The friend hesitated, but she felt compelled to enter the house once more. Once inside, she found herself in the same room where they had found the haunted girl. The room was eerily quiet, except for the faint sound of the girl's cries. As she approached the girl, she realized that something was different. The girl was now translucent and her cries were getting weaker. The friend reached out to touch the girl, but her hand passed through her. Suddenly, the friend felt a chill run down her spine, as if a cold hand had touched her. Then, the ghostly figure disappeared and the room was plunged into darkness. The friend tried to make her way out, but she stumbled and fell down a flight of stairs. When she came to, she was lying on the floor, her head throbbing with pain. She tried to get up, but she couldn't move. As she lay there, paralyzed and alone, she realized that something was wrong. She could feel a cold presence in the room, and the faint sound of a child crying echoed in her ears. As the night wore on, the friend grew weaker and weaker, until she finally succumbed to the darkness. Her body was found the next day, lying in the same room where they had found the haunted girl. Her friends were devastated by the news, and they couldn't shake the feeling that they had somehow failed her. The haunted house remained abandoned, but the memory of the haunted girl and the death of their friend haunted them all. They knew that they could never forget what they had witnessed that night, and they would always wonder what other horrors lurked within the walls of the abandoned house.